interested in the end result of last term's group project, then you could go watch it or watch part of it on YouTube. Okay. Anyway, it ended up being a lot of fun. You know, the group that ends up defending we all know that 90% of the people in this room already have pretty strong outdoor recreation and environmentalist type tendencies, right? If you grew up in the Northwest, which most people did if they go here, then you already have those tendencies just growing up. So few people, really want to, seriously defend the lower Snake River dams. But I found that people are excited about pretending, right, that point of view, because it's kind of fun, right? And we ended up having a lot of fun last term. Okay? Baxter's your friend. I keep reminding you that. Baxter's your friend for all of you who want to defend extraction, resource extraction and business as usual. Baxter's your best friend. So anyway, why don't we? Does anyone have any questions then about the final project? No? How many people? Yes.
How are we going to be graded on it?
Well, we do need a couple. We really need 3 people to step up. And in terms of grading, if you participate in, not everyone is going to have time. We're not going to have time. Okay. And the way I envision, we have 2 hours, right, or 2 hours and 15 minutes. Okay. And we have to do it in this tiny little room. And this time the camera will be down here, and we'll have panelists. And not everyone can be a panelist, right? But everyone has to participate. And so there are going to be 3 leaders kind of who report back to me. And that's kind of an onerous, that's probably the worst part, If somebody just blows everything off, then I kind of want to know, because that person shouldn't get any credit. But, right, if somebody just doesn't show up at the group meetings at all, you never see them, right? And anyway, that's no good, right? You have to have some accountability, some minimal accountability. But if you participate in the group meetings and contribute to the construction of your portion, of your small portion of the argument, then you will get full credit. And you will get the equivalent of an A for your final exam. Okay? Right? Does everyone understand that part now? All right? So, ostensibly, right, a slacker. If we had a slacker in a philosophy class, which of course has never happened ever. But if we had a slacker, the slacker might find this an attractive option, right? Because the slacker could just show up, and talk a little bit about, spout out some new agey kind of stuff, right? And then show up and sit, right? You will have to show, obviously you have to show up, but I'm just saying that in terms of those who will speak and appear before the camera, you're all there. Your face is probably going to show up somewhere, but not all of you will speak, all right? You'll have designated spokespersons, all right? So in other words, you don't have to, if you have a fear of public speaking or something like that, you can still participate in the group project. Okay, don't be turned off by that. I think the main reasons why some people are going to want to do the written exam are just time reasons and maybe the camera. Some people are camera shy, and some people just want to. Most people that choose the written option just want to crystallize their knowledge in written form, and that's perfectly understood. That's how I was. If I was a student in this class, I would do the written option probably. Anyway, are there any other questions?
I have one about the essay.
Yes. Okay, and then we also have that to talk about too. Yes, we have a term paper coming up. Let's just call it a term paper.
Term paper. All right.
Yeah.
You said it's due 2 weeks, week 10, Tuesday?
It'll be due Tuesday of week 10.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I'm not sure.
There was some confusion in what you sent out because it said rough draft was due on Tuesday or this.
Oh, what's wrong with me? I'm sorry, I didn't change that. What's wrong with me? That's why you show up in class, especially my class, because the stuff I write out is totally unreliable. You got to hear it. You got to be here to get straightened out so I can correct myself. But yes, no, what I had in mind, no, there's not going to be a rough draft. In the past, I've had students share and kind of work on papers together, but we're not doing that this term. No. Just work on your term paper, and your term paper is due on Tuesday of week 10. And I'm not sure if that's what I indicated on the...
No,
I think I might have wanted it on the syllabus, it might say due on week 9.
I think it's week 9 on the syllabus.
Ooh, I was scrambling.
Anyway, I actually don't see a reference to the term paper being due. Goodness. But I do say, and I know in the course requirements, you know, right after the course summary, assignments and grading, it says a term paper will be due on Tuesday of week 9, May 24th, okay? But I did neglect to put that in the schedule, I think. So anyway, right now, it's due Tuesday of week 10, all right? And I sent out all the essay topics already, but if you want to, if you have a topic in mind of your own choosing, of your own device, then please do that, okay? You can write on whatever topic you want, as long as it's an environmental ethics essay, not some kind of factual recitation in a research paper. All right? So let's just take a break now, all right? And we might end up going home early today, but I think maybe we should just talk more about the Snake River today, and maybe this might be our best opportunity to get ready. Because I don't have any new slides for today on TP College. We already kind of went through all of our TP College lecture notes, so yes.
When we get back from the break, is that when we're signing up for the groups?
I'd like to send out the sign-up sheet at that time, yes.
Okay.
Is that all right? And I'd like to send out the attendance sheet too. Yeah. All right, so yeah, let's just take a break and, you know, come back and talk for another half hour or so, and then maybe go home early.
So there's a thing that's due, like 10 days.
No, I haven't graded the Thomas Burke summaries.
Oh, okay, well, I'm sorry.
I haven't graded.
That's fine.
I had this. That was
Did you guys chance follow the, like, I think it was like children's school, like full controversy down in San Diego? You know about that? With the sea lion?
There are so many moral struggles going on all over the world involving animals and natural resources.
I'm just curious.
What's the one in San Diego?
I think it was called the children's school, and it was like all these sea lions were using these like public beaches, and this whole controversy kind of arose from that. And they changed legislation, and now there's like a camera set up or something. Anyway, it's an interesting topic.
Well, it's not like school stuff, that's not what we show that I forgot was Tim. It's okay.
I actually that's the element I got. Yeah, I mean, kind of. Yeah.
They're also different.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even just, you know, something interesting. Again, it's different. It reminds me of stuff like
Oh, I'm not sure. I
and of
think,
course, they have metal part and stuff.
but I don't know. I mean, I've never seen.
Yeah,
She was really into it, so I was like, okay, I'll go.
keep a clean tar
But
line.
they're not constantly. So,
I mean, of course, they have a couple songs that are very.
I have another project for this one, and I have a class after that. And I've already had two.
Today?
Yeah.
Something I can't remember.
When I was growing up, my brother had his signature
Well, I,
Seventh
well, one
Street.
of them is a recipe.
I
Like the lowest.
I have
You
one
inspired
station,
me
I have
to
this
play
class,
seven strings
and I
podcast.
have this class. What?
I thought it was.
All right. And then I have this class, and then I have
What is the key is that Seventh Street? It's a B.
so my well, not anymore. So I have a lizard, and she like got a cat from that home when we're not supposed to have cats. And it was severely. Anyways, she moved out with
A-sharp
but he kept coming around at our house, and breaking apart. And then she started to make these things for her boyfriend. The boyfriend is like, so then she goes, what's in a month? And then,
It started off with guitar.
she bought out of contract and she bought into the contract. She dropped this. Now she's doing some other stuff. She's like 7. It's just,
All I have is
Carrie Crawford, it's just like, my mom.
Yeah, it's just been a good challenge.
She's very in now, so it's like, I'll be fully good.
Let's drop everything down, just keep it water.
Totally, totally good, like, hey, go Chelsea.
Goes through it.
But like, the pushing down, she was like, criticizing so hard. She was just so against it. And I think it's because like,
It's a Marshall Cinnamon.
Right.
just like, we put dance and classes for grade. And then she's doing it.
You're more than anthropocentric, you've got your work cut out for you, but yeah. Yeah, honestly, the factualism analysis is the most useful to the consequentialist, right? So, any kind of utilitarian. Yes. I mean, yes. Those are the most common arguments, right? The arguments you'll encounter about the lower snake dams are all, almost all, I mean, very rarely, and one thing I learned last term was that it's really hard for students to articulate more than anthropocentric reasons to steer our natural resource policy. But yes, obviously, the analyses you read in popular publications about environmental issues are all driven by utilitarian calculations of cost and benefit. Yeah, there's no question. So yes, that's a big part of any defense or opposition to the lower snake dams, is an analysis of the costs and benefits of the dams and the costs and benefits of removal. And just to give you a hint, most people who have looked at this issue are amazed that those dams were ever built and were stayed in place all these years, because the utilitarian analysis is just not there. If you consider the enormous economic value, commercial value of this fishery, then the cost benefits are it's just absurd that anybody even considered this. We're doing this putting these monstrous concrete extrusions in the middle of our waterway. It's insane from a simple cost benefit analysis, from a simple economic analysis. But anyway, right? So that's top heavy, but now obviously there are going to be some of you who are going to be interested in the more than anthropocentric arguments, the intrinsic value arguments about species. And as I say, those are a little more challenging to articulate. Yes.
What about? I guess this would kind of count as nihilism, but like saying that, like the argument saying that, like, oh, we shouldn't keep the dams because clean energy, blah 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 blah. The argument, like, let's say that, okay, we've already past the tipping point. Those 4 dams aren't going to do squat, like that type of argument. So why not remove them? Give the salmon a few more years on life.
Or why not just leave them in place would be the more common nihilistic argument. The more common nihilistic argument was, to hell with it. We're all going to hell in a hand basket anyway, and so
Okay,
we might as well just
I may have like a
get our pile as well.
on what that philosophy actually is or isn't.
Well,
In the sense of sort of like, you know, the utilitarian argument like doesn't actually matter because like at least in the sense of like you can't be defended on like climate change grounds, so therefore like you have to consider like what the effects would be for like the benefit of fish or fishers or farmers.
Yeah, that would be
Of course,
Baxter's.
if we haven't passed it, then
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
Well, that would be Baxter's point of view. See, right now, federal agencies' hands are tied mainly because of the Endangered Species Act and listing of about a dozen Snake River salmon runs. Snake River salmon subspecies. Basically, every wild salmon, remnant wild salmon that still swims up here, is a member of a subspecies that's on the endangered species. And then, of course, the other huge legal constraint on what federal agencies can do, as far as just saying to hell with it, let the salmon go extinct, right? The other major constraint that prevents them from doing that are the treaty rights. So, right now they're trying to doing everything they can to keep the dams in place, but they also realize that they have to do everything they can to keep these remnant salmon runs alive. You know, because of the Endangered Species Act and the treaty rights.
But, I mean, like, I would never make this argument myself, but the treaty rights, I mean, those have been violated, like, with impunity in a lot of cases.
On the ground, they sure have, yeah.
I mean, that obviously is not right, but
It all depends, though, right? It all depends on your interpretation of the treaties. That's why I spent considerable time in that one class going over those 3 sets of rights. The first 2 have been affirmed and upheld repeatedly, although they're still on the ground. They're still, you know, that's access and allocation, right? Now, when it comes to these poor beleaguered mid-Columbia and Snake Plateau tribes, there are hardly any salmon left, you know, so allocation, yeah, big deal, man. There's not much there to begin with, so allocation, you know, they used to be wealthy people, right? They were commercial fishers. They were not just subsistence fishers. They were commercial fishers. They traded, and they accumulated wealth because of their trade. In any event, I don't know why. So, does that answer your question? A little bit? No, say your question again.
okay.
You take another stab at it.
If somebody were to defend the dams on climate change grounds, would, like, if like we'd already passed the tipping point and it's sort of like, oh, 4 dams, like, that's not going to do much. Like, that's not going to help ameliorate the effects of, or the future effects of climate change. Would it then be, like, what would it fall under to say that, like, okay, that argument doesn't matter, so we might as well remove the dams, allow the salmon to live for a few more years?
Yeah, they get the last laugh, though, because they're incredibly resilient. You know, that's the thing. If we just got out of their way, then they would go back, you know, their numbers would return. Not, you know, obviously not to what they were before, but, you know, anyway. I'm not sure what you're asking, Andrew. But, nihilism is, you know, you could just say that there is, that all moral standards are equal. All answers to a particular moral struggle have equal validity. That would be the nihilist point of view on all this. But I don't know what good that's going to do a resource manager. You know, I mean, the resource manager is confronting real issues about the way that society has organized its management around the values that it recognizes in its resources. And resource managers' hands are tied because they've recognized value in the remnant wild salmon runs, and that's why they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars keeping those remnant wild salmon runs alive. You realize in 1991, only 1 Where's Redfish Lake? Redfish Lake is up in here somewhere, I think. Somewhere up in the Clearwater River there's a big lake called Redfish Lake. And the reason it's called Redfish Lake is because the sockeye salmon would spawn there, and their bodies are mostly red. Amazing how they change color, right? They're silver in the ocean, and then depending on the species, they put on their spawning clothes, right? And these sockeye have these amazing red colors on their backs, and then their heads are olive green. But anyway, the whole bottom of that lake was red. It was covered with sockeye salmon. And in 1991, only one. They called him Lonesome Larry, and then people think I made that up too, right? Making up more stories about these bizarre exotic animals in Australia that never really existed, and then these weird ski resorts you're claiming they tried to build in the Sierra Nevada. And that's all nonsense. And here's another nonsensical story you're telling me about Lonesome. No, it's true. Lonesome Larry, he swam all that distance, right? All that distance to spawn in Redfish Lake, and he was the only one that made it that year. Yeah, so they captured him, and they killed him, and they took his what else are they going to do with him, right? They saved his milt. They saved his genetic, his sperm. And then next year, several. Whoopee, right? The endlings always get a name, you notice that? They get that last little honor, like Martha, the passenger pigeon, right? They get that last little honor of actually getting a name, and then they die, the last of their kind, and Ben, the poor thylacine. But anyway, Lonesome Larry, his milk was preserved, and then he was used, right? This is a very valuable fish, obviously. Anyway, and the next year, so there are still sockeye going that way, spawning there, but obviously their numbers are way reduced. And there's a Salmon Falls was the end of the line for, but they used to go all the way up into here. And there were tributaries that went down. This is northern Nevada down here, and then this is northern Utah over here. But anyway, the last creek, the end of the line, is called Salmon Falls Creek. Salmon Falls Creek, which is a tributary that flows into the. But guess what? There aren't any salmon left on Salmon Falls Creek. Isn't that sad? Only the ghosts. That always just haunts me. To think that all these place names, they got their name from some feature that was there, and in many cases that feature is totally gone, like the salmon in Salmon Falls Creek. But anyway, so what else do we need to talk about? I don't know. We sent the attendance sheet around. Do we have sign-ups? Have we signed up?
Just
Yeah.
started.
People are still.
Attendance sheet I got.
Did everyone get the attendance sheet? Yeah? Okay, good. And people are still signing up for the final project?
Yeah, it's ready.
Okay, good. All right. Yes?
So if we decide to do the written, do we have to tell you, or are we just gonna not sign up for that and then?
You better send me an email, tell me you're doing the written. Well, yeah, that would be wisest.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So yeah, do me the favor, if you decide to do a written final exam, send me an email today or tomorrow. Okay, could you do that? Yes, Sam.
I forgot to mention it, or you kind of went by it too quickly, but did you say we were going to have time to work on it, or going to work on it, the project outside of class?
You have to work on the project outside of class. And we need 3. You notice there are 3. Maybe even 4. I'm not sure who. I've got a copy of it right here. All right, we need a team leader. Corey Knudsen is already. Where are you, Corey?
Yeah.
You're not Corey.
Oh, sorry.
Where's Corey? Usually sits
Corey's
right
not
here.
here, yeah.
He's not here today. Anyway, so tough luck. But he volunteered. He is the leader of the pro dam group. Okay, and I expect him to have 10 or 11 people on his team, and I expect to have 20 or 22 people on the, or 20 people roughly, 18 or 20 people on the anti-dam. On the dam removal team, okay? And we'll need a team leader for the dam removal team, and then we'll need a coordinator for the anthro-environmentalists and a coordinator for the non-anthro, for the more than anthro. So that's a total of 4. Corey's already been identified, but we need 3 other people who are willing to step up and play a bit of a leadership role, okay? To expedite things and to organize things, all right? We need someone who will lead the environmentalist team as a whole, and then we'll need a coordinator for the anthro-environmentalists, and a coordinator for the more than anthro environmentalists, right? For the deep ecologists and those guys. Okay, so hopefully when the sign-up sheet comes all the way around, we'll just see how it goes. You know, I never know how these little projects and these new ideas, that's the thing about teaching, especially in the 10-week terms, that you know, you have to do these little experiments, and sometimes your experiment is a terrible failure. But you don't know that until it's already played itself out, you know. So last term, you know, you can confirm this if you like by going on YouTube and seeing part of it. But I think it was a success. I think it went really well. So, and I think people learn from it, right? Because it brings our abstract philosophical reasoning all the way back around full circle to just addressing a real practical policy question. And we're going to learn how these different theoretical orientations we've studied can be brought to bear, right, in resource management. So, anyway, so I think people are going to learn a lot from it. Hopefully, but you never know. This one might just be a total failure. I hope not. But we'll see. This will just a rough start, okay? And I'll keep kind of putting it together and giving people more guidelines. And by the time we finally do it, I think it'll go well. I hope so, anyway. So let's talk about, all right. So what are the main arguments? Those of you who know a little bit about this dam removal stuff, right? What are the main reasons why we should think seriously about, or why should we take out these dams? What do environmentalists say? Why should we take them out? Anybody? Yes?
They caused ecological havoc in general and have almost reduced endangered, like, salmon, like they reduced salmon to an endangered species, and without very costly intervention, they would all be dead.
Okay. So, and we've known this though for what? A long time, right? 30, 40, 50 years we've known that these ecological consequences would ensue, and in fact our experience has confirmed that these ecological consequences have ensued and our salmon runs have crashed, right? And yet the dams remain in place. So tell me, somebody, why? What's the big argument for these dams? There must be some big argument, right? Dams have a staying power. Why? Yeah.
Because it's good for the community.
It's good for the community?
Yeah. And for power, it brought a couple of jobs. And we, and a little bit of environmental damage is okay as long as it's good for the community.
Okay. It's good for the human community.
And aren't they really expensive to take out too?
And that's an empirical claim though, right? So what do you mean by good for the community?
It gives people jobs. Way of it's clean energy. Right.
Gives people jobs?
Yeah.
I wonder about that. Okay, but
Yeah,
yeah, so these are empirical claims. It sounds like your argument, your claim is reliant on some empirical research, so the results of research. Okay, so you're kind of committing yourself, right? You're not, I mean, and you're leaving yourself open to if the empirical research suggests otherwise, then you'd have to reverse your position, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. All right, are there any non-consequentialist? That would be bizarre, wouldn't it? Think about that. Are there non-consequentialist reasons to preserve the dams, keep them in place?
It's kind of like a
Hang on, Shay.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
Go ahead. Annabelle. Yeah.
I'm going to use historical, and I know that's not like the right word, but it's kind of like a historical, social thing to like, look at this big thing that we built. It's so cool. Like, look at it, you know.
Yeah.
Like the Hoover Dam, when you go down, it's like this huge, like, tourist attraction, you know, this big thing that we made.
Yeah, Hoover Dam. That's on the Colorado. But yeah, no, there's no question. They are kind of cool, aren't they? I like to visit them. I visited a lot of these dams.
Isn't it subjective though?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That would be subjective. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we know that the Group A conservationists apparently had great confidence in their answer, right? That it was good. They agreed that it was good for the human community, and they thought it was a no-brainer. Could they have been that wrong, that flawed in their empirical reasoning? That actually that, you know, that even empiric just anyway. Yeah, Andrew.
I was gonna say that, like, again, going back to like climate change and everything, but would dam removal? I mean, obviously this sort of like bleeds into a consequentialist / utilitarian argument, but like dam removal would then imply or necessitate increased burning of fossil fuels. Could it be said that
You might, huh? It seems like it would, huh? You're getting less power. What's interesting, though, is that, again, all these empirical claims need to be checked out carefully.
well, but in the sense of like leaving them in place, you're instrumentalizing, and I'm probably misusing the term or concept of instrumentalization, but you're instrumentalizing the salmon, and they're surviving like Native Americans who would depend on the salmon. Taking them down, though, that then like leads to, I mean, maybe not those 4 dams themselves, but like as a general trend, like if that then leads to runaway temperatures and like all the fun things that that would bring, would that then be considered like instrumentalization of everything in this ecosystem?
God. Yeah, well, there you go. So,
Is that even the correct use of instrumentalization?
defense of the terrestrial whole, of the globe, defense of Mother Earth, if you will, requires maintenance of the 4 dams. Because maintaining the 4 dams allows for clean hydropower. We're already down so far these serpent windings of utilitarianism, right? We might as well, right? And, you know, so let's keep instrumentalizing the salmon ecosystem. We have to keep instrumentalizing the salmon ecosystem because that's what we do in order to generate clean power, right? If we don't generate that clean power, then we have to generate it through coal, right? And that causes atmospheric emissions which obliterate the whole planet. And so let's sacrifice just the salmon ecosystem to keep the health of the planet a little better. Is that the argument?
It would be the argument,
It would be, wouldn't it?
but I would be asking is that like that argument has some holes in it. Namely, you can't exactly say whether or not those 4 dams are like keeping them would be the thing that saves us all, or removing them would be the thing that dooms us all. So, whether like how would you even be able to make that claim?
Yes, those kinds of, I think science is not advanced enough to identify the consequences of our actions. So, yeah, and
Gives
that.
us a good idea, at least better than some.
So maybe utilitarianism, if we rely on cost-benefit analysis, we just don't have enough information, right? And so we need to find some other means of making this decision, perhaps. And perhaps that's where the neo-Kantians might step in and say, look, I've got a good guideline right here. The health of the ecosystem, because instrumentalizing ecosystems is wrong. And you're doing that by slowing down the river so substantially, you're making it impossible for the ecosystem to sustain its health. That's morally wrong. So, get rid of those dams, right? And consequences to human communities be damned. Humans have to adapt. They need to adapt to reality. And part of the reality is that the ecosystem is sick, and the only way to make the ecosystem healthy is to remove those dams, right? And then, however humans end up dealing with that, well, okay, you know, but that's it. We got to remove those dams.